Previously on Battlestar Galactica.
We are driving from San Diego up to Malibu this morning to go back to Tuna Canyon Road where I drove off the cliff 10 years ago. So, Lord willing, we survive traffic and we make it there. I'll check back with you in a bit. Good morning, YouTube. Today is a very special day, and I am glad to welcome you to a very special episode of Cliffjumper Cars. I'm Brendan, aka Cliffjumper. This is my son James, and today, other than being the first time I have unleashed my son James upon the world driving the Corrado, which is a special day, to be fair, it's also the 10th anniversary of Cliff Day. That's right, the day that I drove my other Corrado off a cliff in Malibu. So what better way to celebrate and commemorate that day than return to the scene of the crime and document. So I've written articles about this whole driving off the cliff experience, but I've never really told the story on video before. So 10 years ago today, the day started off much like this one. A nice drive in the Corrado up the coast of California. We drove up from San Diego. Now, we met with a bunch of other Corrado owners, and then we drove up to Malibu for a Corrado drive, Corrado owners event. A bunch of us got together, and there was a photographer from, if I remember correctly, it was Power VW magazine that was going to be taking pictures. Now, I had just finished an 11-month restoration on my 1990 G60 Corrado. It was a Helios Pearl Blue model with just a crazy amount of modifications. I had just ticked over 300,000 miles in the car before I started the restoration. 11 months worth of work on this car, and it looked amazing. It was so good looking, but was not meant to last, apparently. So we went on a drive. We met up with a bunch of other Corrados, and we drove along Pacific Coast Highway. Beautiful day in Malibu. Sun was shining. Went up into the hills, up to Mk4 Canyon. Found a nice spot at the top to take pictures, and did our little magazine photo shoot, which, to this day, I've never seen any of the pictures from it other than the ones that I took. So I don't know whatever happened with that. But, yeah, that was a thing. On the way back down the hill from the shoot, we took Tuna Canyon Road. And it is like many of the canyon roads in the LA area. It's a very windy, curvy road with steep cliffs on either side. And it's a one-way only road. You have to stop. You start at the top at the trailhead and you drive down, and it ends a couple blocks from the Pacific Coast Highway itself. So it's a beautiful drive. It's also it's pretty dangerous, as I found out. Yeah, I found out. I was driving it very, very, very gingerly. And there is some GoPro footage to support my claim here, because I was in the middle of this pack of very slow-moving cars. The speed limit on this road when we get up there, we'll check it. I think it's 25, might be 20. We were going like 10 or 15. I mean, just crawling. All along California's coastal scenic highways, if you've never driven any of them, there is this particular sign. I'll post a picture right here. But it says, "Danger, unstable cliffs." And what you have to look for is falling rocks or random rock slides where the wall of the hill that you're driving next to, or the sheer cliff, can just randomly fall apart and sweep into the road. It's kind of like a river of dirt that happens at that point. You don't think it's actually going to happen to you until it happens to you. So you're driving along these cliff roads, and there's a sign that says "Danger, unstable cliffs." and you're just, okay, yeah, I'll keep an eye out. But you kind of file it in the back of your mind like it's not a very realistic possibility. Well, I am here to serve notice that it is. All throughout this drive, we're driving along, a pack of cars, and someone would spot a great shot, a great place to pull over and get some really beautiful pictures. And so we're going down the hill, and the guy in front of me randomly pulls over, and he's waving at me, and his passenger is waving at me, and I thought, oh, maybe they found a good spot to take pictures. Cool. But I was already, like, he slowed over really fast, and so I was moving past him, and so I'm driving past him, and I'm waving at him, not looking ahead at the road, because right ahead in the road there was an active rock slide happening, and I think he was trying to wave me off from driving into it. So it was just sort of, the road was coming down, there was some dirt making its way across like a little river, and I drove into it, and my car just lost traction and started sliding. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, all the way up there. That is the corner that I went off the cliff. We're gonna walk up there so we can just kind of like show you where we went. But went all the way down, and see if I can, yeah, so like went right down that little gulch there, all the way down, landed in that thicket there, so pretty far down. These roads are very curvy, very sheer, and here's what we're looking at. You know, very deep canyons. You go pretty far down, and somewhere in there, my wheel might be. All right, and here we are at the scene of the crime. This is the little curve where things went so terribly wrong. And what happened was, we were talking about those signs that say danger, unstable cliffs. Well, here you see your unstable cliff, and here is, well, more evidence of it's still unstable. I'm taking this rock, I'm keeping it. I feel like I deserve it. Coming down in a stream where all these rocks and bits of sand and sandstone, just like a little river going across the road. And as my car came around this corner, and I drove past my friend who was waving at me, and I looked at him and I waved and said hi, and I thought he was maybe pulling over to take some good pictures. I drove right into it, and so my car conveniently started sliding sideways this direction, and none of this existed. None of this was here. None of these concrete K-bars, these sand things were not here. All of this has been added, probably because of yours truly. So my car slid this way, and you can see, I wonder if I did this. You see this little tiny curb right here. Now I saw the curb and I thought, oh no, I am going to scrape my HRE wheels along this curb and mess them up. That was the worst thing that was on my mind, because we were going like 15 miles an hour, or maybe even slower, because we were on the brakes the whole time. So anyway, I see this and I go, oh no, I'm gonna ding up my wheels. And sure enough, it starts to scrape. The car broke through the curb, if there was any curb left at this point. There might not have been, and that might be why I flipped over the side now that I see it more clearly. But I went over right here and straight down the canyon, and it kind of sideways. And what it felt like was, I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna mess up my wheels. Oh no, this is gonna be terrible. I just refinished them. And then the car tipped over and I started going down the hill. It rolled over sideways, and I immediately thought, oh, this is not supposed to happen. And as the car just started to crash and roll sideways, I mean, the glass started breaking, I'm flopping all over the place, my arms are flailing, and I just thought, well, Jesus, here I come. I thought I was definitely going to die. No doubt in my mind, I was on my way to meet my Lord and Savior. And, you know, they say that your life flashes through your eyes in these close to death moments and things slow down. Well, I can attest to that. As I was rolling sideways and everything is breaking and smashing, Some of you may not know this, but I lost my father when I was young, and he was killed in a naval aircraft mishap after 29 years of service to our country. He died in an F-18 crash, and I was really angry at God when that happened. I was just super mad. I couldn't believe that God would take away my dad, and I was mad at God and mad at everyone. And I remembered that in these moments tumbling down the cliff, and I just thought, boy, Lord, would you please help my children if I do die? Would you be with them, help them not be angry at you, and comfort them, be with them? My wife is going to be super mad at me for going and getting myself killed stupidly. Would you be with her and comfort her and help her not to be angry at me forever? And the car's still rolling down this canyon. And my arms are flailing, and rocks and twigs are coming in through the broken windows, and they're hitting me in the head, and they're hitting me in the arm. And then I kind of thought, oh, what if I survive and I'm horribly maimed? I don't want that. I don't want to lose my arms. So I did what you're not supposed to do. As a racing instructor at Willow Springs, I know better than this, but I did it anyway. I grabbed the bottom of the steering wheel. So you're not supposed to do that. If you're crashing and you're rolling over end, you're supposed to cross your arms and grab your arms, or grab your restraints, you know, with the outside of your fingers so you don't break your thumbs underneath them. But you're supposed to just cross your arms. But no, I grabbed the bottom of the steering wheel and I held on and I tucked in, and I was praying still. I'm praying and going, God, if you let me survive, you know, you can take my eyesight, because stuff's hitting me in the face, right? You take my eyes, that's fine, but let me keep my arms. I want to keep playing guitar. And I'm a worship leader at a church. I play guitar. It's kind of my main thing, and I really wanted to keep doing that. So I was just like, please just let me keep my arms in my hands. Because I had this picture of like my arm flailing out the window and something going whop and just lopping it off, and that was horrible. And I had time to think about all of this as I was tumbling down the cliff. So I'm still tumbling, and I'm holding on now, and every time the front wheels hit a rock or something as the car continued to roll and crash, the steering wheel would jerk, and I'm holding on, I'm tucked in. So every time it did that, it totally yanked on my shoulders. Later I found out I tore both of my rotator cuffs because of this. That's why you don't hold on to the steering wheel. Really injured me permanently. I'm holding on, and it keeps going. And it just kept going. It like felt like it went forever. And at one point I just went, okay, I'm over this. Can we just like have my head hit a rock and be done? I'm like, how far is this freaking canyon? How far could it possibly go? Well, the answer is, it goes a pretty far distance down there. And I was just following gravity. And finally it all stopped. Everything stopped moving. I didn't move for a minute, and I just kind of slowly moved my head and looked behind me, and I saw that I was at the bottom of the gulch down there, and there was nowhere farther for me to go. Oh, kind of wiggled my fingers for a second, wiggled my toes, moved my torso just a little bit to make sure I hadn't like broken my back or something, and I realized I was whole. So I went, woo, praise God, I'm alive, and I was so excited. And so I unbuckled my seatbelt. I climbed out of the hole where the sunroof had previously been and stood on top of the twisted wreckage that was formerly my fully restored car. And I had the Ferris Bueller moment.
What did I do? You killed the car.
I killed the car. I realized that I should be dead. And I had a very tangible feeling of the presence of God with me. And you know, there are people that think I'm crazy for this, but I believe I heard the audible voice of the Lord speaking to me in those moments. And he said, you are not your own. You are mine. You were purchased at a price. There is work to do. And I just felt like this whoosh of spirit and go, oh, okay. Okay, Lord, yeah, you could have had me right now. You could have taken me, and you preserved me here on this earth for a reason. So what's flashed to my mind was the scripture where Jesus tells the parable of the workers in the field, and he says, no one who sets his hand to the plow and then turns back is even fit for the work. And I thought, Lord, you know, not just my hand, but like my whole body, all my strength, everything that I have, I want to set myself to your work, no turning back, and you know, made that commitment. And then as I was kind of just basking in that moment, enjoying being alive and enjoying the presence of the Lord, I heard my friends calling down to me, hey, we're gonna try to find a rope and throw it down, and you know, all the way down there. That's pretty unlikely. Feeling pretty elated, you know, pretty excited, pretty just like, woo, I'm glad to be alive. God preserved me. It's a miraculous thing, totally miraculous. I should be dead, and I'm not, and God preserved me. That's the only way to explain it. And when you look at the car and the wreckage of the car, everything in the car is completely flattened except for where I was sitting. There's no reason the roof should even exist in that section, but right where I was sitting, it's still whole. Definitely, if there was a passenger in my car, they'd be dead. If there was anyone in the back seat, they'd be dead. It's just my seat that was okay. So I just give all credit really to God for that, for saving me, and that I'm grateful. I'm grateful to still be here. So my friends are trying to throw a rope down to me or find some way to get me, and well, now I'm standing on top of the roof. They can't see the car because it's buried in that brush. And as I'm down there in the brush, standing on top of the roof of the car, they can see me. And so I'm now the testosterone is starting to come up, the adrenaline is hitting, plus the spiritual high that I'm on, and I'm just going, okay, I'm looking at the cliff. And I used to go rock climbing for fun with some of my college friends, and so I go, well, you know what, this isn't too bad. On a scale of 10, this is like a 4, especially since there are all the handholds from all the brushes and bushes. And I thought, cool, I can do this. So with the testosterone and the adrenaline and the spiritual high and the stupid kicking in, because my head has just been shaking and I have a head injury, I decided to climb up. I was worried about snakes. Being February and a sunny, warm day, exactly like it is today, snakes are out. Rattlesnakes, venomous snakes. And I thought, how much would it suck for me to have been preserved, have my life preserved, driving off a cliff, and then get bit by a snake on the way up. So as I'm climbing up, I'm shaking every bush and making a lot of noise to frighten away any snakes, not noticing that the vast majority of this entire hillside is poison oak. It's everywhere. It's all over the freaking place down there. I am incredibly allergic to poison oak. Super stupidly allergic. So I'm getting it all over my whole body. Now, granted, I'm not noticing this. We didn't discover this really until about a day later when it erupted all over my body everywhere. Finally, I got up here after about 20-25 minutes of climbing, and I'm exhausted, right? The adrenaline is gone now, and the testosterone rush and all that stuff is just gone, and I'm exhausted. And now it's starting to set in that I was in a rollover car collision, you know, or not car collision, but, you know, went off a cliff. And right about that time, as we look that way, the rescue helicopter shows up and flies down the canyon looking for me. And we're pointing at me and we're waving them off. We wave off the rescue helicopter. So, you know, we're okay. And so they fly off. Apparently one of the neighbors who lives within earshot, they know the sound when a car goes over the edge, the squealing and then the crunch, 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 because it happens so often. And they heard the sound, they just called 911 and said a car just went off, send a helicopter and send EMS. So we wave off the helicopter, and I was like, man, if I had just stayed there, I would have gotten a sweet helicopter ride. Bummer. Because, you know, I'm a boy, that's how I think. And then the ambulance showed up, and so they're like about to send someone down the canyon. We're going, no, he's here. I'm okay. And they come walking. How did you get up here? Well, I climbed. And they're going, you idiot. You should not have done that. You should have stayed there. You could be dying right now of internal bleeding, and you would never know. You went all the way down, like 300 feet down a cliff? So, yeah, they were mad at me, you know, rightfully so. And I was like, oh, yeah, huh? That makes sense. But, you know, head injury. How can you expect me to make good decisions? And like, oh, yeah, good point. So they strapped me down to the baseboard, put me in the ambulance, And my friends are like, hey, we're going to follow you to the hospital. What hospital are you taking him to? We'll follow, we'll meet you there. And they drove me down the rest of the curvy road through Malibu and took me to the UCLA Trauma Center. Along the way, though, I asked the emergency technician there, hey, do you have a cell phone I could use real quick? And he's like, well, yeah. I'm like, I really need to call my wife. He's like, yeah, no problem. So my wife, I don't know about your family, but she doesn't normally answer phone calls from an unknown number, but she knew I was driving up to Malibu up on top of the cliffs for a photo shoot. And I call her from this strange number. She answers, and she's like, hello. I'm like, hey, honey, it's me. I'm calling from someone else's phone because my phone is messed up. I just wanted to let you know I'm okay, but I wrecked the car. And she goes, you drove off a cliff, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, actually, I did. They get me to the trauma center and get me in there. And they immediately, they clean out my arm that's all cut up, and they give it some stitches. And my head, my skull was cracked. They had to staple my skull. It was kind of painful. I was starting to feel it. If you happen to be driving down this road, I would just definitely, all those little sports cars that came whipping through here a little while ago, don't drive off cliffs. Just take my word for this one. I do my own stunts. Don't try this at home.
2 hours later.
I don't know where you're at in terms of your own personal faith or beliefs, but as one who follows Jesus, he's loving, he's full of kindness and compassion. And because of his kindness and compassion, he wouldn't leave us where we were at, stuck in the mess that we made ourselves. That's why Jesus came to die on a cross for us. And we believe that anyone who calls on the name of Jesus will be saved. It's as simple as that. You don't have to check off a whole bunch of boxes. I want to please my Lord. I want to serve others. I want to show others a better way. And my personal mission is to live and lead a lifestyle of worship of Jesus Christ. In 1 Corinthians 10:31, one of my favorite verses, it says, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, you can do all for the glory of God. And Colossians 3:17 also says basically the same thing, is you do it with thankfulness in your heart to God, and it is pleasing to the Lord. And there is certainly a way to enjoy driving a weird car like a Corrado that is pleasing to the Lord. And I can do this with gratefulness in my heart to Jesus, and he's pleased, and he receives just my everyday activities, what I'm doing, as an act of worship to him, because when I'm enjoying myself in him, he is glorified. I hope that I live a life that is worth considering and have a faith worth imitating, and that's certainly my goal. And even with the way that I work on my car and I try to pass it along to others, I hope that whether it's the spiritual stuff or the practical working on the car kind of stuff, that it is helpful for you and inspiring and encouraging. And I just pray God blesses you in your efforts. God bless you. Take care. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye. If you wouldn't mind checking out my Drive Tribe articles that I've written, head on over there. You can search for my name. I've written a few articles about various car experiences. I'd love for people to read my stuff. And of course, if you want to partner with me on Patreon and help sponsor me so that I can keep putting out great content, for many of the videos that we're doing, replacing parts, doing DIY projects, how to do stuff at home. I want to provide that material for you, and hopefully you find it fun and encouraging and inspiring, and at the very least mildly entertaining. But thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and I'm going to just leave you with a few more happy Wookiee noises as I accelerate out of here.